Greg Sutton, Chief Academic Officer for Hardin County Schools. I want to thank you all for joining us again on this session of Impacting Learning and Empowering Students. You probably noticed we're in a little bit different location today. We're normally at the HCEC-TV location. Today we're actually filming right here from the Board of Education. So we're at a different site, but we do have a great show for you this month, and I want to thank our guests for joining us this week. We have Dr. Tanya Jury from Bluegrass Middle School and Miss Danielle Vincent, one of our teachers over there at Bluegrass Middle School. Very excited to have them on here. And while we're talking today, we want to let everybody know that we're excited about a new initiative here in Hardin County Schools, and that is project-based learning. And they've kind of, I guess you would say, have taken the initiative to pilot this for the district, to say, what can this look like in our classrooms with our students, and how can we make this grow, not just in our school, but across the district. So that's what our show is about today. And I'm going to try to let them introduce themselves and kind of tell us how long they've been here at the district. Go ahead, Ms. Jury.
Okay, so I am Tanya Jury. I'm the principal at Bluegrass Middle. I started my career at Bluegrass, 8 years ago, I guess, as an instructional coach, served as assistant principal there for 2 years, and then most recently served as an assistant principal, and then have been principal there for the last 2 years.
All right. Ms. Benson, what about you? How long have you been with us here in Hardin County Schools?
So this is my third year in Hardin County Schools, and actually it's my first district as well.
Really?
So yes, I started out my first year at Bluegrass, taught 8th grade English. Last year I got to be with the Online Learning Academy, so I got to kind of have all the grades. And then this year I am with 6th grade.
Well, in 3 years you've had a lot of experiences already come your way.
It's been a journey.
If you survived the Online Academy during the pandemic, you can do anything. Okay,
Feels pretty good.
That's great. We're glad to have you all here today, and I want you all thinking here for a minute, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, and you don't have to take all the answers here. Maybe let Ms. Benson think of one too. But if you had to think of 3 words for our audience out here to try to think, how would you describe within 3 words what project-based learning is about?
I would say, to me, project-based learning is student-centered, authentic, and engaging. Ms. Vincent?
Yeah, I would say something similar. I was definitely thinking like ingenuity, student-centered, and engaging.
Okay, so it's about how we get the kids involved in the learning process. It's not a sit-and-get mentality is what you're saying.
No.
It's more about what can the kids do to have a real-life experience and get our community involved in the learning process, is what I'm hearing you all say. But it sounds like both of you talked about student engagement. So,
and it's all about student-centered, so how can the students guide their learning, and teachers become more of the role of a facilitator with the students really engaging in the learning.
So Ms. Benson, can you give us an example of maybe where the students took charge of their learning this year?
So it's been a bit of a kind of a slow integration because it is new for them. Our first project, they take a lot of control in the choices that they have as far as the way that they go through the projects and what they focus on and how they complete it. Sometimes their products are going to look different because of that, but the standards are still being hit through the learning process. And in other cases, they quite literally take control as well. Like I've had in some cases where the students are actually up and leading the class in that sense of it as well. So they are getting a lot of confidence and leadership skills developed through this process as well because of that.
Right. I was in there one day and I saw a young lady doing the no's and the needs
Right,
to
you were
know
there for that.
for a unit, and I saw that, and that impressed me, the fact that the students were in charge of the learning and you were facilitating that learning process. But it seems like they were kind of guiding, this is what we know and this is what we need to know for us to be successful on this unit and this standard.
Yes.
And then you got to think about, how am I going to engage them in this process to master it? Right? It's just a different mind. It's like I said, it's not a sit and get, it's not a desk and rows mentality. Am I saying that right?
Right.
Okay.
And it's really cool to see students who maybe used to not engage in the learning become very excited about their learning and want to take that leadership role. That's been really neat for us to see as well.
And what I say about this, everybody had an equal opportunity to say, I want to be the first to try this here in this district. Everybody had an equal opportunity for that. Yet you all took that on yourself. What were some of the determining factors that helped you decide to pursue project-based learning strategies in your school? Why did you take that on first?
I'm really all about opportunities for students and what we can do to make their experience the best that it can be. I knew that we had a good team at Bluegrass who's very supportive of students who want to do what's best by them. And so anytime that we can provide student-centered, engaging opportunities for students and give them the chance to see what they can do as they move forward in life, That's what we're about. I used to be a high school principal as well, so I know where these students are going, and I worked with those students to get them into the community and get them internships. And so if we can develop some of those skills, such as collaboration, communication, leadership, now taking ownership of their learning as sixth graders, and then next year seventh graders and eighth graders, it's going to even benefit the high schools and then benefit the students as they move into the community.
Now, Ms. Vincent, you started this year with your sixth graders, is that right?
Yes.
What are some of the things you're seeing out of your sixth graders that surprised you the most this year?
They were pretty reluctant in the beginning, and I mean, with anything new, I mean, the whole thing was new to begin with. They're new to sixth grade, so they're having to learn that shift in mentality from elementary to middle school. And then on top of that, we laid out these expectations for them to do this project-based learning system that we were doing. So we had to introduce like the different pillars of learning that they have to go off of and kind of show them the major differences that they would be doing this year. And the moment that they realized that it was going to involve a lot of collaboration and a lot of presentations, a lot of them initially kind of were almost in a culture shock in itself with that. And so that got me a little worried, but between then and now, the difference I've seen in these kids is it's wild. They are quick to collaborate, they are quick to want to show what they've been doing, they discuss things so much more academically now versus like the beginning of the year. Their confidence has come up. And you can definitely tell because a lot of our kids, like maturity-wise, they had to develop a lot just from between having the pandemic happen so recently. And you think about it, I think maybe like third grade was the last time they've had an uninterrupted year.
That's correct.
And so coming in, they had a lot of developing to do in that aspect of it. And I think this has really helped them with that
Become better communicators.
as well. It really
Something
has.
they really missed the last 2 years with the
Yeah.
pandemic. Well said on that. Take us through the process that your staff went through this school year to prepare to implement project-based learning. And you can give us a little bit of the teacher side, but you can tell us more about the PD and from the principal leadership side, how you got that started.
Sure. So we had to make sure that we had a good team in place to kick this off, ones who would embrace this work and lead it. And so we had a great team in place at the sixth grade level. And so we created that. They worked well together. They had a 2-day training, really, where they just focused on team bonding and culture, building culture amongst themselves, how to build culture within a classroom, of a team. And then they had a 4-day training where they went in and actually started to develop their first project, learn how to use practice cards and instructional cards and culture cards in the classroom, and then how to take that and build from, as she was saying, the standards, which is what we start with every time, and how are we going to do our benchmarks along the way. And so they did have some significant training that they went through last summer, still going through. They've had, it's ongoing.
So you had to agree on your first project, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. She has
As a team?
Well,
Did you
she
have
has
to agree?
a co-teacher as far as another ELA teacher, and so they work together
Okay.
to
Oh
create
yeah,
that.
we do collaborate a lot in that
Okay.
aspect of it.
All right. So what was one of your projects you chose this year, if you don't mind me asking?
So the first one was actually, I was so happy with the way the first one turned out. We kind of went big a little bit with the first one when we planned it out because we immediately started getting community partners involved. And so the first project we did with language arts was we had them do an anthology project where students picked a thematic statement and then they had to write a story and a poem that both developed the same statement,
Okay.
which almost comes straight out of a standard, but instead of them reading and interpreting it, they're having to apply it and then
Having to do
explain
it.
how it does. So they had to write those pieces and then they had to make a presentation that used evidence from their own writing to explain to their peers how that process went through. But on top of that, we also had Mr. Wittenbach, who used to be at Bluegrass for a while. He's now at the library after retirement, and we got the library involved. And they came in and they helped do like a launch video where the kids watched the launch video and they got to see the actual people in the library and things like that, explaining the project. And then at the end, the librarians came back and then they watched the presentations and got to help kind of rank how they did and things like that. So it helped immediately bring authenticity to project-based learning early in the year. So
Right.
that was, with that being our first project, I just was really happy with how that turned out and immediately getting that piece in there for the kids.
And
Wow.
having that community partnership is huge, partnering with the
important.
Hardin County Public Library, and
Creates relevance for the kids.
absolutely it does.
Let me ask this question. So how has this impacted the teacher's philosophy on teaching and learning, on that process? I know you've been doing this for 3 years, but comparing how you were as a learner versus how you maybe spent your first year teaching versus now, and your experience from when you started almost 17 years ago in education versus now, how has this process impacted the teaching and learning process for you all?
I don't know that they could go back to the way, or would want to go back to the way that it used to be. It's very different. We had a teacher panel not too long ago, and one of the teachers said, "This is hard work, but it's worth it." And that just really sums up for me that what this work is doing and how it's impacting the kids.
What about you? How's it changed you as a teacher?
I know, these 3 years, I'm a real veteran around here, let me tell you.
Well, but just this year
So many
alone,
different
these new processes, did it change you at all? It may not have, but I'm curious.
I think the benefit of me being in my 3rd year, because I hadn't really had a chance to establish like habits in a sense with my pedagogy, right?
Fair.
So like my first year I came in and I was a new teacher, had the typical first year teacher experience, and then I went online, which being online, while it had a lot of different things going on, it did give me a chance to build up a toolkit of technology and being really integrated with that. So coming in this year, I kind of was still pretty blank slate in my approach, and so I think that benefited me in that sense. But I would say for teachers who have been doing this for a while, you're really going to have to change how flexible you allow things to happen in your classroom and not having such a tight rein on the kids, because if you're not going to be flexible with it and give them the space to do what they need to do, it's going to be a stressful time. So you have to really change your mindset about your position in the classroom for it to be successful.
Structure.
It kind of what it
Well,
is.
in a
It's kind of
sense.
what it is.
But here's a question everybody's going to want to know. What's the impact of these processes on your school? Do you have some early data that would point to these practices being a positive addition to your school?
We do. We look at data all the time. Of course, we have the anecdotal data of talking to the kids. We did an interview with them, and just hearing them, they looked at me at one point and said, "Can we do this as 7th graders? Please don't make us go back to the way we were learning." So you have that data, which speaks volumes to me. But we also look at our discipline data. Our discipline major referrals are down 77%. With our 6th graders,
That's impact.
which is huge. And then we look at our academic data, and so we just recently took the iReady test. And so whenever we always track, are students growing from the time that they get here until the time they leave us. And so they took this test in the fall, and then they took it again in the winter. And so right now we would expect that they would be about 50% growth. And in math, they were 81% growth for our 6th graders, and in reading it was 69%. So they're already exceeding the expectation.
Huge feedback for the teachers.
Absolutely.
Huge feedback for the students and for the school.
It is. The students are able to, retain what they're learning because they're doing it. It's not just, I'm going to sit here and listen and take notes and come back the next day and then take a test. They are actually involved in their learning and driving that.
Are you seeing some of the same things?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's kind of like what I was saying a little bit earlier. It's not just a matter of here's a standard, read something, and then just spit it back. But they're really having to apply what they're learning in the process. And so I think because it's more application-based and it's coming from them, it sits with them more.
It's no longer just recall.
Right.
It's application. Well, let's talk about next steps. What's the school doing now to implement these processes at all grade levels? I'm curious, what's the next steps for Bluegrass? You got it going with the 6th grade. Now where are we moving from now?
So we are going to be moving to our 7th grade next. So our 7th grade team will be going through some trainings as well. We've started some things this year to get 7th grade comfortable with it. So we had a teacher panel to where our 6th grade team sat in and they were able to ask questions. We did that district-wide. Anybody could come in and ask questions about what this process looks like. We're going to have a student panel here in a couple weeks where 6th grade students are going to sit in and teachers are able to ask them questions and get their feedback, because middle school
huge.
Students are
That's huge.
they're
You're talking about your
brutally
7th grade
honest.
teachers get to ask those questions.
Yes.
Wow.
And then in April, their 7th grade teachers are actually going to go in and observe the classrooms so that they can see it for themselves, see what's going on. They've already started having the conversations in their PLC, grade level PLC, about what this will look like for them next year. We already have training scheduled for them, the training that the 6th grade teachers went through. 7th grade teachers are already there. I also have some 8th grade teachers. We're really not planning on implementing that until the following year. But they've already come to me, several of them, and said, how can I get in on this? Because they see the impact of what it's having.
And as a third-year teacher, next year a fourth-year teacher, you're going to be almost like a coach, like a project-based learning coach to some of these other teachers. I mean, technically, some of the seventh grade teachers are probably going to come to you for advice, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be looking to you off for leadership. So let's talk about some of those key stakeholders that have helped this process be successful. Who have you worked with here in the district to make this successful for you?
I've had huge support. It's been fantastic. Brandy New, Director of Innovation, Kristen Swords, you, Miss Morgan. If I did not have that support, we would not have been successful. We've worked very closely with New Tech Network. They have provided me with a leadership coach for me, but they've also provided us with a school coach that works with the teachers, works with me. We meet weekly. And I've been very fortunate to have lots of support from the district on this, because it can't be a one-person show.
So the next years, you're going to have support inside the school building from New Tech.
Absolutely.
The company we're actually partnering with for this.
Yes.
Okay, that's huge. Well, any last statements, any last final comments on our session down Impacting Learning and Empowering Students? Anything you all want to add about this that our community needs to know and hear about?
Ms. Vincent?
I don't know. I just know that I'm excited to see this current sixth grade group, when they finally get to eighth grade, how progressed they're going to be in the aspect of what this can do for them. I'm just excited to see how it progresses.
The vertically aligned process, but I'm glad we're doing it slowly. Start with sixth grade, add seventh. It's a 3-year process to get it going. And what about you as a principal?
I'm excited about the things that I'm already seeing. You know, as we move into 7th grade, the excitement's growing again with that group to see what they can do, taking these students one step further. We're actually meeting with some incoming 6th graders over the next couple of days. So being able to share with them about what their experience at Bluegrass is going to be and the excitement there.
It's going to create.
It is.
Well, hopefully in our segment today, you're going to be seeing some of the hands-on projects that have been going on there at Bluegrass Middle School. I know they've done some filming over there of all the great things that they're doing. So thank you all for joining us today here on Impacting Learning and Empowering Students. This is really what education, learning, and teaching is all about. So thank you all for making a difference.
Absolutely.
So thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Thank you.
I am Tanya Jury. I am principal at Bluegrass Middle School. Bluegrass this year has piloted project-based and problem-based learning with our 6th graders, and it is an opportunity for our students to really look at hands-on learning in the classroom and how they can apply that to real-life examples. So we have done projects like recycling is one that's going on right now. We had students go around and swab the school to see which area was the germiest, and then they took that and developed their own project. So they wanted to know, is hand sanitizer better or is washing your hands with soap better? So it's really getting the students to see things from a bigger picture instead of just sitting and doing worksheets all day. They're really investigating and doing their own, solving their own real world problems. We're very excited to have HCEC-TV come in and be able to showcase what our students and our teachers are doing. They've worked very hard this year. This is a new way of thinking, a new way of learning. So students are so used to just sitting in a classroom all day, every day, and listening to the teacher. And now really they are taking ownership of their learning. So we're excited to showcase what they've been able to do and show how they're actually leading their learning while the teachers are more facilitators in that.
It's definitely way more interactive with how you do everything. It's not just have a pen and paper, write this, turn it in, good grade, yay, but that's not really teaching you anything in life, and that's what school is supposed to do. So I think it's really more efficient.
Project-based learning also attacks real-life scenarios and things that I'll be able to actually apply to my life.
Basically, what it amounts to is we had the standard. I give it to the kiddos to begin with, and they start throwing ideas on what they want to find out with it. As long as it can match in with the standards, I'm game for it.
I can really see the communication skills, the listening and speaking skills that they're learning in the work that they're doing. I can see that when they interact with me and with their peers, and so I try to address those things, those positive things too, when I'm working with students.
instead of coming in and maybe one class period being dedicated to something, you might have a week or two where you're working on a larger project with lots of content from different areas and getting an actual product out of it in the end, maybe a brochure or a video or some sort of project or community service that you're taking into the community.
With these initiatives, we're really kicking it off because last year, I bet it wasn't fun for anybody just because of COVID-19. But this year, we're kicking it off.
Centimeters are small compared to inches. So how far do you think your car is going to make on carpet?
I know in my classes, whenever students are allowed to do projects like this, they have a lot more buy-in than when it's just me talking at them and them writing down notes.
Thank you all for watching and learning more about Bluegrass Middle School.